Hi, my name is Amy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to answer a list of questions that the fellow Costubers and I have put together in the Costube Facebook group. I'm going to try to get through as many as I can without making this video too long. That's the main purpose of this video. The second purpose, while we're all in this kind of crazy limbo where we're not sure what's going on with the coronavirus, COVID-19. A lot of cities are put in lockdown. Schools are being canceled all over the country, including my daughter's. I live in Oregon. Her school originally was just canceled for 2 weeks, but we have now been canceled for 6 weeks until the 28th of April. She's really bummed. She's a senior in high school, so she's going to be missing out on those typical senior activities, you know, prom, graduation, those kind of things. We'll figure out a way to make it up to her, but until then, we're all kind of in limbo. The other people who are in limbo because of all of this are the small business owners, especially in the costuming community. So at the end of the video and in the description down below, I'm going to link as many of the costuming small businesses that I know of, and if you feel like it or have the opportunity, patronize them or just share their information. Maybe somebody else will patronize them. This is actually called Costuber Tag, and you're meant to tag other costubers at the end of your video, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it open-ended, and whoever wants to play next can, and if nobody does, that's fine too. So with that, here we go. What is your channel name and what's the story behind it? I kind of explained this on my intro video. My channel name is Swimming in a Sea of Estrogen, and that is because years and years ago, like 2004, I think, I started a blog, and at the time I was a single mom with 3 daughters, and there was a lot of estrogen flown around the house. And so that's how I came up with the name. And the dog is scratching her collar in the background. Anyway, that's how I came up with the name, and it has just kind of stuck. And now that I've had it for so long, it's kind of sentimental, and I don't really want to change it or try to get rid of it or do anything like that. When and why did you start costuming is the next question. And it started in 2013. Todd asked me when we were just dating to go to a LARP event with him once. He said if I hated it, I would never have to go again, but I actually loved it. And so I needed to make myself a costume for that event, and it was kind of last minute, and I scrambled and threw something together. Since then, though, I have continued to make the costumes for my LARP character, and I've made a couple of his costumes as well. I also sewed my first historical costume last year. I made 2 robes à la française, and they both turned out really well. But neither one is particularly historically accurate, so that's the next thing I want to do, is make a more historically accurate 18th century gown. Haven't quite decided on which style yet. How did you get into making YouTube videos? I'm not sure exactly. I just decided one day to start filming after watching all of the Costuber Secret Santa videos, and I thought, well, it was kind of silly and maybe I would do okay, but I actually am finding that I'm enjoying documenting the process of the things I'm making, even when it's not costuming things I'm making. As an example, right now I'm making 3 Amherst shirts from Hey June Handmade Patterns, and I really enjoy documenting that process and maybe not necessarily teaching, but showing people a different way to do something. So, what is your usual genre of costumes? Well, for our LARP group, the genre is kind of fantasy, medieval. And the only other costumes I've really made are the 18th century gowns I made last year. How many costumes have you made? So I made the 2 gowns last year. My first LARP gown. I have another formal LARP gown. We had a formal event one year. And if I can find pictures of all these things, I will put them somewhere. I've made another tunic, several cloaks. So, like I said, I'll try to add pictures. I don't know exactly how many costumes I've made, but several. What was your first costume? My first costume was for that original LARP, and I wore a pair of brown leggings, and I found a crushed velvet stretch dress at our local secondhand store, and I kind of tore it apart and ripped it and gave it a different shoulder and waist silhouette, and then I wore kind of a corset and jacket over top of it. And I will post a picture of that as well. That was my first costume. It was sewn really badly. By the end of the weekend, the bones in the corset were poking out of the bottom, and it was falling apart. So, and then the next year I tried to wear it again, and I couldn't keep the stupid thing up. So it was definitely time to make something new. Which costume is your favorite or biggest accomplishment? I think my favorite is the purple medieval formal gown I made for LARP, just because it's gorgeous. I love the suede feel of it, and it's just really pretty. My second favorite, or they're probably equal, is my stripy robe a la francais I made last year for the Stripey Challenge, which was hosted by Carolina Zabrowska. Which of your costumes do you like the least? Apart from that first LARP costume, I think the costume I like the least is probably my pink robe a la francais, just because I don't care so much about the synthetic fabric. I care that I'm not happy with the design on the fabric I chose. It's a pink, polyester taffeta with velvet damask patterns printed on it. And it's kind of cheesy. It's not my favorite. So, where is your favorite local place to go shopping for fabric and or other costuming materials? That's funny. So I already said I live in Oregon. I actually live in Eastern Oregon in a little town called La Grande. There's about 12,000 people here. We live in a valley, and there is nothing closer than 2.5 hours. If we go west, we can get to Tri-Cities, Washington. If I go east, I can get to Boise, Idaho. So one way or the other, I'm traveling close to 3 hours just to get to a costuming store. We do have a beading store here, so sometimes I check that place out. And we do have 2 nice quilting fabric stores, but they're usually really expensive, so I don't buy fabric there. What is your favorite online store for purchasing fabric and or other costuming materials? For costuming materials, the only place I've really bought things is Amazon. I would like to purchase some things from Burnley and Trowbridge and other historical costuming suppliers. I did just purchase a pattern from Red Threaded, and I'm working on their 18th century stays. For fabric, all of my silk I have bought at fabricmart.com. I think that's pretty much it. I have gotten some coutil and twill and those kind of things at fabric.com as well. And my battery's blinking at me, so I have to change it. Biggest trick with changing the battery is getting the camera back where it was as close as possible. Other online stores I've purchased from are Penny River Costumes. I purchased from her Etsy store, but a lot of costumer shops that are on Etsy are moving over to a different platform, and I will try to link that information down below as well. I don't think I've purchased from any other online places for costuming. And that would be my daughter. Commercial patterns, self-drafted patterns, or winging it. None of the above. That's not quite entirely true. I did use the American Duchess Simplicity pattern for my robe à la Francais. I have never drafted a pattern myself, though it's kind of tempting. And I have never winged it. I'm too much of a control freak to try winging a pattern. And fabric is expensive. Even muslin is expensive. So I'm too nervous in my abilities to try winging it, because I don't want something to turn out so awful that it takes, 20 muslins just to get it made. So, need a drink, by the way. Sew or die, if you can see that. Just lemonade. Kind of wish it was something else. What is my favorite or most used pattern? Well, the one I've used the most probably is that robe à la Francais pattern. I've made the shift twice and I've made the gown twice. However, I think my new favorite pattern is my red threaded stays pattern, just because getting it to fit so well is awesome. I love all the processes of getting perfectly fitting stays. Hand sewing, machine sewing, or both, or glue. No glue. I love machine sewing. I hate hand sewing, but I think I hate hand sewing because I'm no good at it. So I continue to force myself to hand sew so that I become better at it. So maybe I'm a little quicker, so I don't hate it quite as much. So I machine sew as much as possible on everything I make, and I only hand sew the necessities. Although I did just make a completely hand sewn shift, and I'm really proud of that. Historical accuracy or historically inspired, or neither? I want to say historical accuracy, except that I'm not willing to hand sew an entire garment, I don't think. So historically inspired is probably more accurate. And also neither, because I like the fantasy element. I like the idea of making something that is inspired by a certain fashion and making it completely off the wall. Do you use thrifted / vintage fabrics? What are you always on the lookout for when you go thrifting? I already described kind of where we live. We don't have a whole lot of opportunity to go thrifting here. If I do happen to see fabrics in a thrift store, there's the dog again. Are you done? Come here. We'll introduce you. Come here. Come here. So I don't think I've introduced her before. This is Pip. She is our lick freaking Chihuahua. She is a sweetheart, and she's my baby girl, and that's kind of cheesy, but she hangs out in my sewing room. That's her room as well, and unfortunately she likes to make a lot of noise. So this is Pip. Her actual name is Pip Squeak. She's kind of big for a Chihuahua. Go lay down. Okay, go lay down. So back to thrifting. We don't have a lot of opportunity here to do thrifting. Or thrift for fabric anyway. We don't have a lot of sources. If I do happen to go antiquing or thrifting in a larger area, I'm looking for natural fibers, even if it's something really off the wall pattern that I can use as a muslin, those kind of things. I would kill to find silk or linen or something like that thrifting, but I just don't seem to have that available to me. And do I use thrifted or vintage fabrics? Absolutely. If I found some, I would totally use some. What are your favorite fabrics to work with and why? For muggle clothes or normal everyday clothes, I love knit, especially bamboo, because it is a natural fiber. It breathes easily. It's very easy to sew. It's thick enough that you can wear it without worrying about the opacity, but it's thin enough and breathable enough that it's not too warm. I also really love rayon chalice for everyday clothes. And just, this is the Amherst top I was talking about, and it's out of rayon challis, and it's just really lightweight and flowy. It makes gorgeous dresses, gorgeous tops. I'm not really a dress wearer unless it's costume, so it all gets turned into tops for me. For costuming, well, I haven't used them for costuming, but I made myself a coat, two coats this winter actually, out of wool, and they're both lined, well, one's lined with silk taffeta, and the other one is lined with polyester charmeuse. Don't like the charmeuse at all. It was too slippery. It stretched on the bias. It was awful to work with, but I loved working with the wool, and I loved working with the silk taffeta. It was amazing. Have you revamped any old costumes? If so, what did you do to them to give them new life? I have not revamped any old costumes for two reasons. The first one that needed revamped was beyond fixing. It was that first LARP costume. And the other reason is that the other costumes I had are too small. They're not something I can revamp. I've gained weight and they don't fit anymore. So how has costuming affected your everyday life, i.e. history bounding? I am a marketing coordinator for a manufacturing company, and I work in a warehouse, in an office in a warehouse. So it's not really an environment where I could do much history bounding. And plus it's just not something that fits into my everyday life. So I don't do any history bounding. However, it has affected my everyday life just because my general interests have changed from, you know, basic everyday clothes sewing, which I still love and I still do all the time. But now I find myself, instead of just reading books to enjoy, which I still do, I read books to learn. I actually have 3 new books that I've gotten the last few months that I'm working on trying to get through. One of them is this How to Read a Dress. And I have its companion, How to Read a Suit. And then this one just came this week, 18th Century Fashion in Detail, and I can't wait to get into that one either. So as far as changing my everyday life, I would say costuming has made me more interested in researching actual historic fashion. So, what part of making a costume do you dread the most? The hand sewing. Absolutely, 1000% the hand sewing. Oh, and the cutting out. I hate cutting patterns out. It's tedious and I hate it, but it has to be done. What is your favorite part about creating a costume? I think my favorite part is trying it on the first time after it is completed, trying on the entire ensemble and seeing that transformation from, you know, 21st century middle-aged woman to whatever the costume is. I love that transformation. Even watching other people put on a costume for the first time and seeing their transformation, that's what I love. And it's a sense of accomplishment to make a costume like that, especially when you're talking about all of the underlayers through the entire costume, including wig, shoes, stockings, everything. I love it. What is your favorite entertainment while you're working on something? I usually have either YouTube videos or I've found a Netflix or Amazon show to binge. It just depends on what the interest is that particular day. But my habit is that I do find something and binge the whole thing before I watch something else. I don't I can talk. I don't generally watch more than one thing at a time. My go-to to have on in the background is Harry Potter, by the way. How many hours per week do you work on making things? I'm pretty lucky. Todd and I only have one child left at home. She's really independent. We all hang out a little bit in the evenings for a little while. And so I spend almost every evening at least in my sewing room if I'm not actually sewing. So if I'm not sewing, I'm in here researching or reading or drawing or something along those lines. So I get to work on sewing just about every night, and all day on the weekends unless I have something going on, and I love it. And I'm finding that I say "and I love it" quite a bit. So if it's annoying, you can mute me. How long does it, how many hours, how long does it usually take you to complete a costume? I'm not sure. I made the stripy challenge costume pretty quickly, but I was working against a deadline there, and I had already made the pink robe à la française, so I knew how it went together. The pink one took a long time, but it was, working on evenings and weekends, probably including all the underpinnings, maybe a month, 2 months maybe, before I finished it completely. The stripy challenge dress, probably a month. So next question. Where is your favorite place to take photos in your costume? That's a good question. I haven't actually taken my costumes out to have photos taken in them yet. I really want to do that. So now that spring's coming along, I might have to find some time and do that. Summer or winter costumes? I don't know, both. I don't like being cold, so either way. So let's go back to summer or winter costumes. Don't know. I don't think any of the costumes I've made really qualify as either or. If I had to choose, I would probably say winter because I hate being cold. But summer is my favorite time of year, so maybe summer. I don't know. Actually, yeah, probably summer because the fabrics are so much more lightweight and diaphanous and flowy and beautiful. What are your favorite colors to work with? I love all colors except orange. I love orange as far as seeing it in things and on things, but I don't like to wear it, so I don't really like to work with it. I'm looking in my fabric stash there to make sure there's no orange, and there's not. I do love peaches and corals, but no orange. What am I currently working on? I am currently working on my red threaded stays. I've got to get those perfected and the fit spot on before I start working on my next gown, which is going to be another 18th century gown. Actually, I'm going to be making a gender bend green arrow 18th century dress. I haven't quite decided which era of the 18th century I'm going to make, but that's what I'm going to make. Oh, what are you currently working on? What's my next project? The green arrow is my next project. But also I would like to, I have some beautiful sage green silk that I would like to make something out of. So I haven't decided what yet. What's your ultimate dream costume? I'm not sure. Probably something with grand paniers. I'll have to see if I can find a picture and add it up above. Do you have any other hobbies? Are they more significant than costuming? I wouldn't call costuming my hobby as much as I would call sewing my hobby. And it is sewing is my main hobby. Like I said earlier, I do it almost every single night. And I do have other hobbies. I like pretty much anything crafty. I know how to crochet. I don't know how to knit. Watercolors, scrapbooking, anything. I really just like anything crafty. I'm willing to try anything. What is your favorite thing about Costube? I'm new at costubing. This is a whole new community for me, and I absolutely am astounded with the amount of support and positive vibes that everybody in this community gives to everybody else. It's just, the camaraderie is amazing, and I really, really like that. The last question is, which 3 costubers will you tag? And I'm not going to tag anybody. I'm just going to let anybody who wants to follow through and do this, do so, and if not, they can do that. So I hope this was a little bit interesting, if not too boring. I kind of feel like I haven't posted anything for a long time, so I was looking for something easy to post, and I thought this would be a good way to kill some time during all of these mandatory lockdowns and school closures. And we're pretty lucky here in Eastern Oregon. Our businesses are not closed yet. All of our restaurants are mandated by the governor that they're not allowed to be open, but most of the restaurants here are doing takeout, so it's affecting them, but not as badly as it could be. Todd's Work is closed down because it's a trailer factory, like a fifth wheel and bumper pull trailer factory, and they just don't, there's, first of all, they have too many employees to be in one space at a time, and it's just safety's sake. He's still working, office staff are still working. He's the network administrator, so it's a good time for IT to be there working on things they can't do when the plant's full. My job is not closed down yet, knocking on wood, and hopefully it'll stay that way. So, well, I hope this was interesting in these crazy times of coronavirus COVID-19. I hope you and your families are staying safe and well. And I don't know, hopefully this provides some entertainment for you. If you liked this video, go ahead and click the thumbs up. And if you would like to see more content like this from me, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.